Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us today at the Lesson 14 exam review. Hola, bienvenidos a Español. My name is Zach. I'm one of two Spanish teachers here at Penn Foster. Also with us here today is my colleague Dan, available to answer any questions you may have. We do have a variety of ways for you to get in contact with both of us throughout your Spanish program. Phone, email, chat, text, and appointment scheduling are available, as well as consulting any of the online academic resources found at the website on the left of your screen. As I mentioned, if you have any questions today, please feel free to use the questions box and we'll get those answered promptly for you. On today's objectives, we'll do a few things. First, show adjective placement rules. This might be a review if you attended the webinar on exam 13. Next up is to review words with similar meanings. We'll talk about phrases using ir plus a plus the infinitive, how to translate that. Also, we'll talk a little bit about the differences between por y para. These are words that can translate as for in Spanish, but they may have some other meanings as well. We also will discuss words and phrases concerning parts of a business letter that you may use. And we'll wrap up with any last-minute questions. So to start off with, exam 14 is 4 parts. And part 1 is multiple choice. You'll be tested on parts of a letter and usage. Next up is listening comprehension, again, multiple choice. Part 3 is a translation from English to Spanish. And then finally in part 4, it's a writing section. You'll be writing a business letter in Spanish, expressing how to open or close a bank account. To start off with, we're going to talk a little bit about the descriptive adjective placement rules. And we want to draw 2 different types here, so inherent adjectives and non-inherent adjectives. Start off with inherent adjectives. As it mentions here, those of permanent or given qualities precede the noun, so it will come before the noun. So in this case, this would apply to, every instance of the noun the adjective would apply for. So in the example here, the blue sky, el azul cielo, we generally know that the sky is considered blue all the time. So the adjective azul comes before cielo, the noun. Another example, una alta montaña, a high mountain. Mountains are generally high or tall. If it's shorter, it probably would not be considered a mountain. So again, these are the inherent adjectives, those that apply to all types of that noun. This is in contrast to the non-inherent adjectives, and most times in Spanish you'll be dealing with descriptive adjectives that are non-inherent, and they will follow the noun that they modify. So our examples here, el libro azul, we see that the adjective comes after the noun libro. Not all books are blue, as it mentions there. You could have a red book, a yellow book, an old book, a new book, a lot of different adjectives there. Un hombre alto, we know that not all men are tall. So in this case, again, a non-inherent adjective will follow the noun. Talking a little bit about the possessive adjectives, we want to just review those with you. You can see the chart is designated here for my, your, his or her, our, and their in Spanish. And we see that each form does have the singular or the plural form, namely the S on the end of each of those possessive adjectives, depending on how many objects are being possessed. The important thing with adjectives is they must agree in gender and number with the noun that it modifies. So in the examples down below, we give you some examples of the possessive adjectives. Yo tengo mi libro, I have my book. Mi and libro are going together. Yo tengo mis libros, we see that this has now become plural. So we have to add that S onto mis to agree with libros. Similarly, on the right-hand side, nuestra casa, our house is large. Nuestra and casa are both feminine, so they end with that A. Nuestras hijas, our daughters, our children, are funny. We see that AS ending on nuestras, hijas, and also cómicas, which indicate that feminine plural. Next up, we want to just give you a chart of words with similar meanings from this unit. So you do want to make sure you look through these examples and see how they are translated just a little bit differently from their counterpart. So the first two would go together, meaning to work or to function, funcionar, versus trabajar, meaning to work as in labor. We want to express the difference between ir plus a plus an infinitive and the future tense. We're going to go over this in a little bit more detail up next. But generally speaking, with ir plus a plus an infinitive, you use the word going to plus the verb, versus the future tense will use the accompanying word will as part of the translation. Compañía and empresa, company and business, they are similar, but obviously we have two different words in English to express that. Expirar and vencerse, expirar to expire, meaning possibly death, versus vencerse to expire as in coming to be invalid or to give away. And then finally, la próxima semana or la semana que viene, two different ways of how to express next week. So going into a little bit more detail about this construction of ir plus a plus the infinitive, some students do get confused in the fact that they can translate the same way. It is not the case. Ir means to go in Spanish, whereas future tense will use that will as part of the translation. So if we want to use the expression of going to happen, we're going to use a form of ir plus a plus the infinitive, and we're going to show that through the color-coordinated example below here. So voy a ir de compras, we see voy is that first person singular of ir. So I am going, the a to, and your infinitive ir de compras, to shop. Looking at an example in the plural, los estudiantes, the students, van would be the third person plural form of ir, present tense, are going a tomar, to take, un examen, an exam. So again, three parts to this construction, a form of ir, the a, and the infinitive. The next item we'll discuss here is the differences between using por y para. They both can translate as for, as it mentions here, but they also have additional meanings. It's important that you do use these correctly because they are used differently depending on context. Definitely, we could probably have a webinar, a standalone webinar on just this topic. It is probably one of the most confusing things for students in Spanish of which one to use. But generally speaking, you can see a list of reasons with some examples in this chart of how to use each form. So in addition to the chart, we wanted to provide you some examples using sentences. In this first sentence, we're talking about miles per hour. So we're talking here about a rate. We're going to be using por in this first sentence, viajar. The next sentence discusses a deadline. So that's why we translate the second sentence as due. Your homework may be for Friday, but it's really due on Friday. So we're going to be using para for a deadline. And then finally, our third one, we're going to be using por because this has to do with motivation. So if you're doing something for someone, motivation for yourself. Now, if you're doing something, for someone, you might be using para as the intended recipient. So a little bit of a difference there with that last one. This next chart will give you some vocabulary to use in your business letter, which is part 4 of the exam. We just wanted to give you a couple of words that you definitely probably should have in your letter. So we see the opening querido for dear, the end saludos for regards. Estoy escribiendo is a good one. I am writing. Be writing a letter. Cuenta bancaria, bank account. Abrir to open, cerrar to close, and carta poder, power of attorney. So definitely should have at least all of these words mentioned within your business letter. Going along with writing a business letter, one of the components of that is writing a date. So we wanted to go over briefly of how to do that in Spanish. Again, we color coordinated these steps so you'll be able to see within the example each part. So the first thing we're going to do is provide the masculine definite article, el, which means the. In blue, step 2, we have the number of the date. Step 3 would be the word day, which typically translate as of. And then finally, step 4, we end with the month. So in our example here, hoy es el 6 de marzo, mañana es el 7 de marzo. Today is March 6th, tomorrow is March 7th. So as you can see, looking at the colors from the top and the colors in the examples, you can see each part of the date written out. There always are exceptions in Spanish. You can see that the 1st and the 21st are expressed differently, using primer for the 1st and 21 for the 21st. All the rest of the dates are going to be formed normally. That does wrap up today's session. We will take any of your last minute preguntas, any questions. As I mentioned at the beginning of today's session, we do have a variety of ways for you to get in contact with us if you do have additional questions as you're going through that exam. Academic resource website, phone, email, chat, text, and appointment scheduling. Dan and I both thank you for joining us today and your attendance. We look forward to receiving your exam and wish you buena suerte. Good luck. Have a great day.